Hello friends and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Deepa Robbins from DeeZinesByD, and I just want to start off by wishing everybody a Merry Christmas for those who are celebrating, and for those who are not, a Happy Holidays. I hope everyone's enjoying their day at home or their week at home, whatever holiday period you have with your family and friends, and all of that goodness. I hope everyone's having a feast today, enjoying presents and just time together, especially after everything that's hit us with the pandemic, and just, relax and have some fun. So I did want to squish in one more Christmas card post for you guys because I did get these stencils from PinkFresh Studio. They are the holiday botanical background stencils, and they are absolutely great. There are 4 of them. And they're very simple to use. It's just a set of stencils. This set does not have like a suite to go with it. And I wanted to show you how I use these stencils and jazz them up with a bit of other crafty supplies to create some beautiful Christmas cards. Now, I know it's going to be a little late for this year, but you can go ahead and save this video or save the Pinterest pin that I have in my blog post, which is all linked below, and go ahead and use this for next year's Christmas cards, or even use the idea and just to use them for birthday cards or something else that you can make this year or next year. So basically, there are 4 stencils. I went ahead and used a bunch of pinks. So I've listed all the colors that I've used and the different types of inks that I've used. I'm using the Altenew inks for this first card, which is a very pink card. And I'm using them just to create a nice pink background. They're different tones of pink, which gives you a bit of variation in your colors and just makes the different parts of the stencils stand out. You can also make the different parts of the stencil stand out with different types of pressure. So you could use heavier pressure in the center and lighter along the edges and things like that. Now, the one thing I did to step this up is I used some Versamark ink with my blending brush, and I just kind of added it to like the outer edges of the mistletoe leaves. And I did this because I just wanted to highlight those edges with some embossing powder. So I'm going to be using Altenew Rose Gold embossing powder, which has more of a goldish hue. It's like a paler gold, which I really like for this. And it's just going to add just a little bit of shine and highlight to this background stencil. And you can use any type of embossing powder you want to do this little technique. So once I've gone ahead and melted all that embossing powder, you can see that it creates just a nice little look with the pink. Now I'll move on to the second card. For this, I'll be using some Pigment Craft Company inks, and I do have to say that I just got these recently and they're really nice. So first of all, they are a nice palette of colors. So I'm going to be using the beautiful greens that they have. I'm using Lagoon, Juniper, and Balsam ink. And they are nice deep colors, but it's a bit of a foliage green versus like a bright green, which I really like for this and Christmas cards. Not to mention that the ink pads are sponge, right? So they actually hold a lot of ink, which makes ink blending and stenciling much easier to do. Not to mention your ink pads last you that much longer before you have to re-ink them. Now for the berries, I went with the Altenew Heartbeat ink because I needed like a nice deep red, and this just worked well with these colors. Now, to step this one up, I didn't add any Versamark, but right after I finished doing the stenciling, I added some Ranger holographic embossing powder. Now, this embossing powder is great to use with anything because it's basically a clear embossing powder mixed with some AB Shine glitter. And so basically that AB Shine is going to pick up all the colors of the rainbow and any of the colors that you've laid down on your cardstock here. And you can see it creates just a nice subtle glow where all of that inking has been done. Now my final technique here is to use a darker cardstock. So I'm using a dark navy blue cardstock, but because I want my ink to show up on this, I can't really use dye inks. They're not going to show up on a dark color. I need pigment inks, so I'm going to be using the Hero Arts Unicorn ink line. Now I'm just going to be using 2 of the inks. I'm going to be using the Unicorn White and the Unicorn Pastel Mint ink, and I'll be using that for 2 of the layers. And then for the final 2 layers, I'm going to be using Encore Metallic Silver. This is also a pigment ink. So any type of pigment silver ink, or you could use any other metallic colored ink, would work for this. And again, I'm just highlighting the mistletoe very lightly with the Encore ink. And I'm creating a bit of a gradient, making the color a bit stronger on the edges and the tips of the mistletoe and a bit lighter towards the viney portion of the mistletoe. And then for the berries, I'm using it again, but using heavy pressure to just fully fill in those berries with that silver metallic ink. So I'm just going to get some really shiny silver berries in the end here, and this is the final look that you get. Now, if you notice, all of my panels are a bit bigger. I cut them down to size, and then for the pink and the green, I use some more of the Pinkalicious and the Juniper ink to just add a bit more color to the edges very lightly. Now to dress these up even more, I'm going to be using some dyes. So for the green background, I'll be using this dark green cardstock, and I'm using the PinkFresh Studio Slim Stitch Scallop Rectangle dies. So this is a smaller die, and I'm going to do some partial die cutting just to get a smaller little rectangle to put in the center here. Now what's going to happen is it's going to cut off a bit of your edge, but you can just tape that together and you won't even notice that anything was cut. Then I'm also going to be using some of the Spellbinders Petit Floral Potpourri dies. I always say that wrong when I see how that's written, but anyways, I'm using these dies with some beautiful metallic red cardstock here. This is some red metallic craft cardstock, and I think this is just from Michaels. You can use some Tim Holtz jewel cardstock, whatever you have on hand. This is just what I had available. And then I'm using my stylus tool to kind of shape my flowers, and then I'll be gluing those together with some Barely Art glue. Now I also cut out some of these little leaf fronds, which are using the Concord and 9th Mistletoe Messages die set. And I also have that Season's Greeting sentiment, and all of my other sentiments are using the PinkFresh Studio Holiday Sentiments plate and die. So if you haven't seen these before, it's basically a whole plate with a bunch of sentiments. I foil them, cut them with the die, keep them aside, and then use them for all of my cards. There's also a generic set that's not for the holidays, but just like birthdays and thank yous and things like that you could use as well for cards on a daily basis. So for this card, that Season's Greeting is foiled with some green cardstock from Spellbinders. And now I'm just going to arrange these little mistletoe all kind of around that little frame that I've popped up there with some foam tape. And I'm going to stick down the centers just to kind of hold them in place with some double-sided adhesive. And I'll take off the backings, and then I'll stick on my little sentiment. So it's going to cover up that adhesive, and it's just going to help keep those little fronds in place. Now for the foam squares for the sentiment, I actually use the foam squares that come in the Spellbinders kits. So if you've ordered any Spellbinders kits, they always come with like a square pack of these foam adhesives, and I don't usually use them because they are pretty thick. It creates a lot of dimension, but for this, I thought it was really needed to get that sentiment to kind of stand out in the center. Then once I had everything kind of where I wanted it, I went ahead and attached all of those pieces of foliage and the flowers as well. Some of them were popped up with some foam squares, and some of them were just glued straight down to create some more dimension. And you have to attach those with like a stylus or something you can stick in the middle to push it down, because you want to keep the dimension in the flower and you don't want to flatten it. And then finally, as I always do with my cards, I finish them off with some nail art gems. So I use some AB colored gems along with some gold metallic gems, and that just made this card kind of pop in the end. So I went ahead and used the same method with the next two cards. For the blue, I used those mistletoe again, and I used the sentiment to kind of stick down the mistletoe, then added a bit more glue to kind of stick them down more in the centers. As you notice, I'm keeping the edges free so that they can kind of create more dimension and just add a bit more to the card. And then I went ahead and added all of those little flowers. These ones I did in silver metallic cardstock, which is the Sizzix Opulent cardstock. So once you've got all of those little pieces of foliage and all the little flowers down, again, what you want to do is then add your bit of bling. Like, you don't have to add nail art gems like I am. You can use some enamel dots if you want to create some variation. Maybe you want to use some, what are they? You want to use some dewdrops, some Nuvo drops. Those would look good on this as well. And finally, for the pink card, I did the exact same thing, but for this one, the flower that I used was the Spellbinders Layered Poinsettia die and dies. And I just used 2 of those to make this little poinsettia. I had it lying around from some of the other poinsettias that you might have seen that I've made for my decorations, and so I just thought I'd use these up. This type of technique is great for using up old die cuts that you may have cut some extra of from past projects. It's just a great way to use up all of those extra bits that you may have. Now, I sometimes have these little pieces lying around my desk if I haven't cleaned up properly, or sometimes I just keep them in like a container. I'm sorry for all the movement in the camera. I didn't realize that was occurring. But I'm pretty sure that you guys have some extra die cuts you can use for this. Now for the insides of the cards, I'll just go through this pretty quickly. I just did some ink blending at the bottom edge. So I used a piece of Post-it tape to kind of create an edge, a straight line, and then I used the different colors of inks which matched the front of the cards to create this bit of color at the bottom. So once I've added all those inks, you see once I pull away the tape, I get this nice crisp line. And then what I'm going to do with that is add just a little bit of a border. So I'm going to be using the Sizzix Opulent Ivory Glitter cardstocks, and I just cut out like a few little like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch strips, and I'm just going to glue those down right along that line where I created that bit of ink border at the bottom of these cards. Now I lost a little bit of footage here, I'm sorry about that, but I did add some of those extra die cuts that I used on the front, on the bottom left corner where that little border is on the inside of the card. Now for my sentiment, I'm using the Altenew Warm Blessings stamp set. Now this stamp set is really nice. It doesn't have too many words in it, so it's just like a few words, and with like it would work on the front of a card as well. But they're just so nice. All the little like the little loops and stuff and the letters just look really nice. So I used basically the VersaFine Clair ink to stamp out the printed portion, and then I used the different colors based on the color of the cardstock and the colors that I used on the front of the card to stamp the main part of the sentiment on the inside. So once I've got that blue one nice and stamped out there, then I just have one more to go, which is the pink, and for that I'll be using the Pinkalicious. So for the green, I used the Juniper Pigment Craft Co ink. For the blue, I used some Distress Oxide Chip Sapphire, and then for the pink, I used the Altenew Pinkalicious ink. And those are the final cards that I have for you today. As you can see, you get 3 different looks. We've got a green, a pink, and a blue, a white on blue, and you can see just by changing up your colors of inks, by using some embossing powder to kind of highlight your stencils with the gold like I've done here, or with the holographic like I did on the green, or you can even add those pigment inks on dark cardstock. You just get so many different results. And I love adding die cuts and extra little things to the front of the card, especially when you're using a 2D product where this stencil is just kind of flat. It just creates a bit more interest to your card and helps kind of stand out a little more. So I hope you guys were inspired by these cards that I've created today. I hope that you are able to take something from this video and apply it to your own card making. And please don't forget, if you like my video, to give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you would like, and hit the notification bell to be notified of future videos. And I hope that you guys have a great Christmas, a great holiday season, a great week off, hopefully, or maybe more. And I hope that you're all enjoying yourselves. So that's it for me for Christmas cards for this year. And if you've been paying attention to my videos, you know I've been going since July. So now I'm kind of going to be lost for a little while. I'll take a little break and I'll get right back to it and have some more videos for you guys. Once again, have a great holiday season, and I'll see you guys again next time. Thank you. Bye.